Hi, I'm Ed Finn and welcome to our new Let's Go Travel series in association with Platinum Travel, your Fly Drive USA expert. This week, I'm on a road trip discovering the scenic beauty, history, culture and the amazing food and drink scene here in New York State. No, I'm not in New York City, I'm in New York State. I checked in at Dublin Airport for my flight to Newark. Aer Lingus operate 3 flights daily from Dublin to New York and daily flights from Shannon. Fares start from $2.29 each way, including taxes and charges. Passengers flying with Aer Lingus from Dublin or Shannon to Newark and JFK now travel on Aer Lingus' state-of-the-art A321neo LR. This is Aer Lingus' next generation sustainable aircraft. It boasts greater fuel efficiency and a 50% reduction in its noise footprint. It offers great onboard Wi-Fi, LED mood lighting to help you relax better, plus an improved aerodynamic design with a single aisle. I absolutely loved it. After a seamless check-in at the Hertz car rental desk, I headed off beyond the Big Apple for Duchess County and my home for the next few nights, Rhinebeck. Rhinebeck is a charming, historic town in New York's scenic Hudson Valley. Located just east of the Hudson River, Rhinebeck has great views of the Catskill Mountains, and it's located just an hour and 20 minutes drive from New York City. It's a cultural mecca with galleries, museums and some great restaurants. Rhinebeck is also home to the Beekman Arms, America's oldest operating inn today. There are also lots of hiking and biking trails for outdoor enthusiasts to explore the natural beauty of the region. Samuel's Sweet Shop, owned by actors Paul Rudd and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, is a real little jewel in Rhinebeck's crown, selling chocolates, old-fashioned candies, specialty espresso drinks, teas and lots of lovely cakes. I headed off to meet John Travers, the manager. So tell us, John, about this shop here. It's got a great story.
Samuel's was founded in 1994 by a man named Ira Gutner. His portrait is back there. But he came up here and he fell in love with this small one-stoplight community. He bought a house, he'd come up on weekends, and he felt it was missing a candy store. He had very fond memories of going to this candy store in New York City with his Uncle Sam, and a friend suggested you should open a coffee shop over a chocolate case. And hence that was the business model of Samuel's, was a coffee shop candy store. And he owned and operated the store for 20 years. And in 2014, on the cusp of our 20-year anniversary, Ira had a sudden heart attack and he passed away. And the community was devastated, and there are some special people in the area who happen to be customers of the shop and who are friendly with Ira and me, and they vowed to help me. And the special people, of course, are Paul Rudd and his wife, Julie, Jeffrey Dean Morgan and his wife, Hillary Burton Morgan, and Andy Ostroy. They came forward and they bought this store. They made me their partner. I operate the shop, and here we are 8 years later. It's kind of a bittersweet story. What happened here allows this legacy to thrive, and Samuel's is doing better than ever.
Wonderful. And of course, you mentioned Paul Rudd. It's a lovely story. We know him so well from all his great movies. I won't even name them. We'd be here all day. And loves Ireland, and the Irish people love him. So this would be a right little stop for when Irish people are coming over here. Rhinebeck, of course, just about an hour and 40 minutes up from Newark Airport. Very, very handy to get up here, and a really beautiful town, I have to say.
It's a very easy trip from New York City. A quick train ride, actually.
Wonderful. And a lot of the stuff here you make yourself, obviously. This is all bespoke, sort of, handmade sort of chocolates, is that right?
Yeah, the store is so small that I've always had the opinion that if it's not yummy and good and people aren't going to buy it again, we're not going to carry it. So everything comes in small quantities, locally made. We get four blueberry muffins at a time, 6 scones. My mom bakes chocolate chip cookies for us. We have an award-winning chocolate maker who's made some really incredible treats for us. So we make as many things as we can, and we also hand package most of our items.
Yeah, well, I must say, it's really impressive. It's the quintessential sweet shop. Absolutely love it.
You know, does Paul Rudd ever come in here? And yes, he does. It's not uncommon that a customer will come in and they'll say, hey, does Paul ever come in? And he'll come in from the back, hi guys.
Yeah.
But we're still here, and Paul's a nice guy.
I have my dollars here, right? So I'm ready to go and do some serious damage. Okay, good.
The Prohibition-era bootlegging operation of mobster Dutch Schultz and his retired New York detective partner Patrick Ryan is now a unique spirits destination where you can sample some of their sugar wash moonshine as well as lots of New York State spirits of today. I got the full tour from owner Brendan McAlpine.
This conjures up amazing, exciting sort of images of a past era, bygone era, and it all happened here.
That's right. This is Duchess Spirits. We're a 400-acre farm and distillery up in Pine Plains, New York. And yeah, we're the home of Dutch Schultz illegal bootlegging operation from Prohibition.
And it was a very sophisticated, advanced sort of operation, wasn't it?
It was. Basically the story starts in the early 1920s with Pat Ryan, who was an Irish immigrant who moved to New York City and actually made his name as an expert, fingerprint expert for the New York Police Department. He had a little bit of some trouble here and there, and he basically was forced to leave the NYPD when he was implicated in a bribery scheme. He resurfaced a few years later in the news for killing a Prohibition agent, but luckily for him, he was acquitted. The jury believed his self-defense argument. And then the next thing we hear about him is he appears in Pine Plains on this property in 1928 as the new owner of Harvest Homestead Farm. He definitely had some connection with Dutch Schultz. Dutch basically financed Pat Ryan to build a very large, perhaps the largest, we're not sure, underground distillery, certainly in the United States during Prohibition, but who knows, it could be even bigger than that. They started bootlegging below what to the outsider looked like a totally functional turkey farm, and no one could see what was really happening below ground because there was a series of tunnels where the bootleggers would come out of buildings without ever having to mingle with the farm workers. But the fish in the creek started dying, and some local fishermen reported it to the environmental authorities. And at first they thought it was a paper mill. They very quickly, by testing the water, found out that the paper mill probably wasn't dumping alcohol into the stream, and they realized there was a big bootlegging operation someplace here. And they zeroed in on this farm because there weren't really, there wasn't that much going on. But it took the FBI 3 separate attempts before they actually found the bunkers here. And when they cracked open the mystery, so to speak, they found 2,000-gallon stills, 10,000 pounds of sugar, vats and vats and vats of fermenting mash, 5,000 gallons of liquor sitting here, tons of oak chips used for rapid aging of spirits, but they only caught 2 guys.
And of course, you got your license now a few years ago, so you're a legitimate operation now, aren't you?
The federal government issued our distilling permit. It's October 10th, 1932 is raid day, and October 10th, 2018, we got our permit. So it was a pretty ironic twist there, and one that certainly didn't go unnoticed by us.
Let's do some of that tasting. I'd love to try it, and let's go and check out the bunkers.
Excellent. So Ed, this is our sugar wash moonshine. It's based on Dutch Schultz's original recipe from Prohibition that was made kind of right below us here in the bunkers. And like I said, it should be pretty smooth. It's not the rocket fuel that most people associate the word moonshine with. It's more like a light rum. It's made from sugarcane and...
Cool. Well, I have to say, it's been a great and very enjoyable experience here. Fascinated by the history, Brendan, and this will be my first time ever trying sugar wash moonshine, so hopefully I'll remember how to get home after this.
Cheers.
The next morning I was up early and off to visit Eldrid Preserve in the Sullivan Catskills. The Eldrid Preserve, a project brought to life by local entrepreneur Dan Silna and his wife Joan, is a 600-acre area with beautiful lakes and forests and over 300 species of birds, so a nature lover's paradise. The Sunrise Lake is a great place to enjoy some local fishing or relax boating on the lake. I loved the peace and tranquility here, and it's a great place to get away from it all. I headed for Bethel Woods and the famous site of Woodstock, where I was meeting the museum's senior curator Neil Hitch and guide Ernie.
What this museum is about is the context of what is happening in the 1960s that creates this counterculture moment when just 500,000 people from all across the United States kind of show up at this one event, the Woodstock Festival. Having the best musical acts of the decade was a plan. Having it be a cultural event that drew the counterculture together as this mass be-in, that was a plan. What wasn't a plan was 450,000 people showing up. The concert was kind of planned for 50 to 100,000 people. There's this constant comment that I felt I had to be there. And I think that's what drew the people. See, one of the things that we talk about here is about 500,000 people on site, another million trying to get here. Ernie is here today, and he was doing docent tours, and I thought this might be kind of a cool thing to go through with him.
Great. Well, Neil, thanks a million, right?
Yes.
And, I want to get immersed in Woodstock. And Ernie, you look like just the guy.
Ed, welcome to the museum here today. Bethel Woods is the site, as you know, of the original Woodstock concert in 1969. And our venue opened in 2006 for concerts, and the museum opened in 2008. If the 60s had not occurred the way it did, the concert would have never happened. And as many people know, the 1960s were the boomer generation. Those kids born post-World War II between 1946 and 1964, and we were all coming of age in the 60s. But when we started the decade, TV was in black and white, and the only way we got information was on the TV or what our folks told us. But because we're a museum about music, we like to point out too that the way we heard music as kids was on AM radio, and if you liked the song well enough, you could buy what was called a 45. The first thing that gave the boomer generation the opportunity to learn more about the world around them was with this little device. Do you recognize that?
I do indeed. I love radio.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a great face for radio, as they say, Ernie.
Very good. But it's amazing that the little transistor radio gave us the opportunity as kids to listen to what we wanted to, where we wanted to, when we wanted to, whether it was a ball game or music or anything. We went and it started opening up the world to us. Are there other people like me? Am I the only one? And we started realizing there was more of us. This is one of our centerpieces, maybe the centerpiece. It exemplifies how people got to the concert. And it was advertised heavily, so people were coming from all over the states, indeed from around the world, and still do. But the Technicolor bus would be the one thing that people most identify with. Ed, we're going to walk right into the other award-winning film here at our museum. This is a 270-degree circular, 30-foot high, surrounded
That's amazing.
theater. This takes you from the very first minute of the concert to the very end.
Oh, it's amazing. It's like you're in sort of a time travel capsule.
Yeah. And you can do it over and over. Every 9 or 10 minutes, you can do it again.
The main stage, and like all those people, this is where the 3.5 days of the festival was held.
Brilliant. Amazing.
One of the things that people talk about in our oral histories is the smell of just being dead grass, mud, rain, and let's say, smoke drifting across the crowd. Yeah.
Very good. Absolutely brilliant.
After a fascinating tour of the history of Woodstock and this majestic area of Sullivan Catskills, I headed north to Utica, where I met the very suave Fred Matt, the president of FX Map Brewing Company.
Ed, welcome to Utica, New York, and to the FX Map Brewing Company. I'm Fred Matt, president of the brewery, and this is our family's company. It's been in our family for 134 years this year, actually in March. We've got a great heritage here, and I actually am Irish, so we'd love to have some people visit from Ireland and come see us.
And the tour is fabulous. I mean, it only takes you 45 minutes, right, and you get to taste all these great beers. But the one I tried last night, the Utica Pilsner, that was just, I've had a few in my time, right? Yeah. That was way up there.
Yeah. Well, that's the first beer brewed after Prohibition. So prior to Prohibition, we did what most people call craft beers now. Stouts, brown ales, lagers, IPAs.
And what do you think it is, Fred, about this whole area that kind of lends itself to this amazing tradition of beer making, craft beer making now as well?
Well, so my great-grandfather emigrated from Germany in 1878. He thought this was the Black Forest, and that's why he came. This area is beautiful, and you mentioned the Gateway. So we're 4 hours from New York City. There's a lot of stuff to do here. We have concerts in the summer on Thursday nights, but you can also, in an hour, be on a lake, almost any direction you go. And so that there's a lot of things to do here during the day, and then you can go up and have a nice weekend in the Adirondacks or go on to Buffalo.
Brilliant. Well, for anybody who's traveling up this area, for me anyway, having been here and seen it, I think this at Utica, New York, it's a must stop, and I'm going to have to get another suitcase going home because I have to get some of these beers back.
Well, I'd say it's not only a must stop, and I'd say for anybody that's doing platinum travel, come see us and I'll give you a free beer and I'll come and drink one with you.
Great. Cheers, Fred. Pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much.
Cooperstown, New York is recognized by most Americans as the home of baseball, and it's home to the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Cooperstown is the quintessential Americana town with its rural traditions, restored historic buildings, timeless diners, and lots of cultural attractions that visitors tend to remember just as much as baseball.
By the end of the American Civil War, which ends in 1865, baseball just explodes in popularity all over the country. And very soon after that, within 4 years, there were professional teams, which were unheard of before that. No one got paid for doing this. But by 1869, some folks figured out, hey, if we pay these players, we're going to get the best players on our team. We're going to win all our games, which is exactly what happened. And by the start of the 20th century, baseball was easily the most popular sport in this country, one of the binding forces. When you talk about immigrants who came to this country, one of the ways they assimilated very quickly was to play baseball. So the Hall of Fame opens in 1936. By that point, there was a gentleman named Babe Ruth, who was the guy who really was baseball became popular at a huge international level with Babe Ruth in the 1920s. In 1939, June 12, 1939, we opened our doors to the Hall of Fame for the first time. We've expanded 5 times since that original. But as you can see, the plaques here celebrate the greatest names in the history of the game.
Wow. It's so quintessentially American, Craig, baseball. I mean, it's just, the story is really just captures the imagination of so many people.
It does, and the game is just, it's such a well put together game. When you look at it, even 150 years ago, a person who is hitting 300, which means you get 3 hits out of every 10 at bats, it's still a person hitting 300. That's still the standard of success. There are people who say you could not get more perfection than 90 feet between the bases. That's pretty accurate. Even today, with athletes as good as they are, and as training methods as advanced as they have become, A ground ball to shortstop is still a ground ball to shortstop, and people still struggle to get to first base, to beat the throw to first base. It's just amazing how well the game was put together when our founding fathers did it.
We said so long to the beautiful slice of Americana, and we moved on to Ithaca, the home of Cornell University, where our guide Rob Montana took us on a tour of the famous Herbert F. Johnson Museum and Visitor Centre.
Ed, welcome to Cornell University. We're here at this is the Tang Welcome Center. It's kind of the place where people start their Cornell tours. It gives you a nice immersion into Cornell, which is a big icon here in Ithaca. It's a big draw.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, Rob, because to be honest with you, I'd never really heard of Ithaca. As you know, I'm on a road trip here around New York State, as I was saying to people, beyond the Big Apple. And for me, I'd heard of Cornell, of course, and I had to walk around. I saw all the famous people that been here, the writers, the students, teachers, and the art galleries here. But it's a real hive of sort of intellectual creativity here, isn't it, in this area?
It really is, and it's interesting too that this small city has all of this, intellectual property.
The energy here is amazing, and you can feel that. When I came in today, you could feel that. I suppose for people that want to experience that, usually they'd stop over for sort of a night or two here. Rob, would that be kind of normal?
Yeah, that's pretty normal. A lot of times with international travelers particularly, you find them coming into New York City and making their way to Niagara Falls, and we're sort of a perfect stopping point in between. Plus, you can see the tallest waterfall this side of the Rocky Mountains at Taconic Falls, and that's actually 3 stories taller than Niagara Falls. It doesn't have the volume of water, but it's taller, and it's a pretty interesting sight to see as well.
Rob really undersold these to us because they are absolutely spectacular, and as they say in Ithaca, it's gorgeous. You can drive to a lookout point or hike along one of the stunning trails to get here. Our next destination is on many people's bucket lists, including my own. It was our final destination on an epic road trip through upstate New York with Platinum Travel. It's the US side of Niagara Falls, where we met up with Tina to discover all about this amazing place.
Ed, welcome to Niagara Falls, USA. So we're standing at Prospect Point in Niagara Falls State Park. Right behind me here is the American Falls, there's the Bridal Veil Falls, and then there's the Horseshoe Falls. What you're looking at right now, it's only at 50% capacity. The other 50% is redirected to create hydroelectricity.
Amazing. I've just had the most fantastic week on my road trip around New York State, beyond the Big Apple. I've driven from Newark right all the way up here to Buffalo, and here I am at the iconic Niagara Falls. This is real bucket list stuff and something I've always wanted to do. And I have to say, it really does impress. Over 75,000 gallons of water a second goes over here, and it's only at 50% capacity. Just across here we have Canada. So what an amazing place. I want to say a big thanks to all the folks at Platinum Travel and I Love New York for putting together this amazing itinerary. The history, the culture, the food and drink, the scenery, the parks. This is a fantastic holiday, and I can tell you, I will be back.